In this module, I am going to cover a very important topic in the intensive care unit, and that is the mechanical ventilation. The objectives of my talk are to understand the physiology of mechanical ventilation, to understand the basic modes of mechanical ventilation, when and how to initiate invasive mechanical ventilation, and to understand the monitoring and complication during invasive mechanical ventilation. If I want to broadly say the indications for starting the invasive mechanical ventilation is of course acute severe hypoxemic respiratory failure. It could be acute hypercarbic respiratory failure when the non-invasive ventilation is either contraindicated or has failed in a patient who is apneic or a patient in whom you want to reduce the work of breathing, like in a patient of shock. I want to mention little here that in a patient of shock, although he is able to maintain his oxygenation, but his work of breathing, he is breathing at a very high rate and the oxygen cost of breathing is very high. A lot of oxygen is being consumed by the respiratory muscles and there is decreased oxygen to the vital organs. So if you ventilate these patients, you take away the oxygen cost of breathing, and this will be available to the vital organs for their good functions. So this is also one of the indications where in modern days you do invasive ventilation in a patient of severe shock. Another thing which I want to say here is that mechanical ventilation should be considered early in the course of illness and should not be delayed until the need becomes emergent. It should not be emergency situation like you intubate and ventilate. It should be always planned, and most of the time you should be doing the intubation impending severe acute respiratory failure rather than emergency situation to arise and then ventilate. Physiological and clinical findings are helpful in assessing the severity of illness. However, I think the decision to initiate mechanical ventilation should be based on clinical judgment that considers the entire clinical situation rather than just a one ABG or a one parameter. So when you ventilate a patient, you have certain goals. Goals could be to maintain adequate oxygenation, like in a patient of acute hypoxemic respiratory failure, ARDS patient, or it could be to bring down the PaCO2 to acceptable level, like in an acute hypercarbic respiratory failure, and to reduce work of breathing, which could be in COPD patients, which could be in any respiratory patient, and also in a patient of shock. And you should ventilate in such a manner that you do not cause harm to the patient. That means you prevent ventilator associated lung injury. Now when you enter into an ICU, the most glamorous or a fancy looking piece of equipment in the ICU is a ventilator with lot of alarms, with lot of graphics, and it is very intimidating. But let me tell you, all ventilators, what they do just one thing. They push air into the lung. They give you a mechanical breath. Normally when you breathe, you create a negative pressure inside your lung and the air flows into the lung. In an invasive mechanical ventilation, they push the air under positive pressure. That's why it is called the positive pressure ventilation. Like you do a bag mask ventilation with the ambush bag. You push air into the lung under positive pressure. So mechanical ventilator, they give a mechanical breath under positive pressure. So to give a breath, there has to be a source of air. It is most of the times either a compressor in the mechanical ventilator machine itself, or there is a centralized compressor which you get in your ICU, the compressed air. Then this air comes to the ICU, and then there is a microprocessor based machine which we call as a ventilator, which control the gas flow to the patient. For patient to access gas from the ventilator, there are two sets of valve. One is the inspiratory valve and the other is an expiratory valve. Inspiratory valve is connected to an inspiratory limb which is connected to the endotracheal tube, and through a Y connection there is an expiratory limb and the gas goes out. So during inspiration, the inspiratory valve opens, the gas flow starts, and then when the breath is delivered, the expiratory valve opens and the gas goes out. So in a simplistic terms, this is what all the ventilator do. They push the mechanical breath into the patient. So in this, let's try to understand the physiology of positive pressure breath. On the x-axis, there is time. On the y-axis, there is a pressure. And you see on the upper part, there is a cartoon showing the inspiratory limb and there is an inspiratory valve, and then there is to the upstream to the patient is the endotracheal tube, and then there is another valve which is the expiratory valve. And during positive pressure ventilation with a volume cycle breath, inspiratory flow begins when the inspiratory valve opens, as you see in the first diagram. And at this stage, the expiratory valve is closed. This is the beginning of the inspiration. The pressure will rise, and the highest pressure which you get during the volume cycle breath during inspiration is called the peak inspiratory pressure or a peak airway pressure. It is influenced by a variety of factors that includes airway resistance, the compliance, the flow rates, the tidal volume, and the baseline pressure, which is the PEEP. Because it is the pressure which is directly dependent on the resistance, it is very sensitive to flow rate. It is important to note that peak airway pressure is significantly affected by the airway resistance, and it is not the pressure which is being felt by the alveoli, which will determine the ventilator associated lung injury. So if the inspiratory valve is closed at the peak airway pressure, as you see in the second diagram, the pressure will fall because there is no flow, and the pressure will fall, which is lower than the peak airway pressure, and this pressure is called the plateau pressure. Since the effect of flow resistance is eliminated, that's why the plateau pressure is lower pressure, and this depicts the alveolar pressure. At this stage, the inspiratory valve is closed, and during the end inspiratory, there is equilibration of pressure between all the open lung unit communicating with the central airway, which is the plateau airway pressure. In most modern ventilator, you can see the plateau pressure by using the control mark, the inflation hold, which you give for a few seconds and you get the plateau pressure. And if it is not there, you can give a 0.3 to 0.5 seconds of the inflation hold and or the plateau or a pause, and you can see the plateau pressure. And now in the last diagram, you see the expiratory valve opens and then there is an expiration. Now if you want to see the same thing in a volume cycle breath when it is delivered in a flow time graphics, the time is on the x-axis, the flow on the y-axis. So when the inspiratory valve opens, there is a flow starts, and at this stage expiratory valve is closed. This is the beginning of inspiration, as you see by the first arrow. The inspiratory flow rate will rise to the peak inspiratory flow rate, which is maintained all through the inspiration, and when the inspiration ends, the expiratory valve opens and then there is an expiration. One thing I would like to say here is that expiration is a passive process. It is not controlled by the ventilator. Whatever mode you give, the expiration will appear the same. Whether you give a volume preset mode or a pressure preset mode, the expiration will be passive and will appear same on the flow time graphics. Now, when a mechanical breath is delivered or when the flow starts, it produces changes in the pressure, volume and flow in the respiratory systems, and that are greatly dependent on the mechanics of the respiratory system. So when you deliver a mechanical breath, pressure, volume and flow can change. But any given point, you can control one of them The other two will be dependent on the airway resistance and the compliance of lung and chest wall. For example, in a volume controlled breath, the flow rate or tidal volume is controlled by the ventilator, and the changes in the resultant airway pressure is dependent on the resistance and compliance of the respiratory system. I want to add here the most of the modern ventilators, they are flow controllers, they are not volume controllers, and the volume is derived as a product of flow rate and inspiratory time. What I am trying to say is that if you, let's say you fix up a rate, the flow rate of 60 liters per minute, and you fix up a tidal volume of 500. So 1 liter in 1 second, so this 500 will be delivered in 0.5 seconds. Okay, so the tidal volume is determined by the ventilator as a product of the flow rate and inspiratory time. As I was telling, all the ventilators, they give a mechanical breath. So to deliver a mechanical breath, the flow has to start, the inspiratory valve has to open. So the factor which will open the inspiratory valve and starts the flow is called the trigger. Now, then there is an inspiratory fall. One or more variables during this period will not rise of a value which you have fixed on a ventilator, and that's why it is called the limit. Like you fix up flow 60 liters per minute. So all through inspiration, whatever pressure is required, ventilator will ensure that the maximum pressure during inspiration does not rise above 60 and it is delivered to the patient. Similarly, in a pressure controlled breath, you fix up a pressure of 20 centimeter of inspiratory pressure. So all through inspiration, this will not rise beyond 20 centimeter of water and the breath will be delivered. So it is called limit, or it is, some people call it a target. First is the initiation of the breath, that's called the trigger. The inspiratory phase, which is called the limit, one or more values which will not exceed all through the inspiration. During the inspiratory phase, that's called the limit. Now this can't go on forever, this has to stop. The inspiratory valve has to close and the expiratory valve has to open. The factor which will end the inspiration is called the cycling. And then there is a expiration, which is a passive process. As you can see on this, the trigger, the flow starts, and then there is a, during the inspiratory phase, the patient is getting a volume, and then when the inspiration, the inspiratory valve closes, the expiratory valve opens, and then there is an expiration. During pressure controlled breath, there will be trigger, the inspiratory valve will open, patient will get a uniform pressure, and depending on the inspiratory time, the inspiratory phase will end, and then there will be cycling. So this way, there are the 4 phases of mechanical breath. These phases, they help us to explain how a ventilator starts, sustain and stops in inspiration, and what it does in between inspiration, that is the expiratory phase. So let's go in little more detail about these phases. The trigger is, ventilator needs to know when to start a breath. So a ventilator breath may be initiated by the patient or by the ventilator. When it is triggered by the ventilator, you call it a time triggered. When it is triggered by the patient, you call it a patient trigger. In time trigger, patient initiates the breath according to this set frequency independent of the patient effort. So what I mean to say is that if you fix up the breath rate of 12 per minute, every 5 seconds the inspiratory valve will open and patient will get a mechanical breath. That's a time trigger. Now the patient can also trigger the ventilator. When patient trigger the ventilator, the machine has to sense something. So it can either sense a pressure, which actually came into existence first, and then, or it can sense the flow. The pressure triggering, it requires the patient to create a small negative inspiratory pressure, 1 to 3 centimeter of water, depending on what you put on the ventilator. The negative pressure is sensed by the ventilator, and the ventilator, the inspiratory valve will open and the breath delivery will start. With the best possible mechanics, the pressure triggering delay will be minimum 110 to 120 milliseconds. So there is a gap between the signal from the brain to the initiation of flow about 110 to 100 milliseconds. So because of this, the flow triggering came into existence because they said the triggering delay is less in this. This is more effective. So the machine will sense the flow when a patient makes an effort, creates a flow of 1 to 3 liters per minute. The mechanical breath will start as the inspiratory valve opens. And the triggering delay is less with this. But still there is a triggering delay. So in last about a decade, they came with a neural triggering. That means, when a signal starts from the brain, it goes to the diaphragm and then the flow starts. And there is a gap between the diaphragm starting contraction and the starting of the airflow. So what they did was put a lead into like a nasogastric tube into the lower end of the esophagus. When it detects the diaphragmatic contraction, the airflow starts. This is what is the neuro triggering and what is available as NAMA. Now, whenever there is a patient initiated breath, will always have a small pressure deflection below the baseline, denoting patient inspiratory effort. A machine initiated breath will not have any negative deflection below the baseline. You call it trigger sensitivity, that is the amount of signal required to initiate a breath. Like in a pressure triggering, as I said, 1 to 3 centimeter of water. Similarly, flow triggering, 1 to 3 liters per minute. So this is called the trigger sensitivity. The second phase, as I said earlier, is called the limit. That means one or more variables will not rise higher than the preset value, like a flow or a pressure. This is the phase of the inspiratory cycle which begins with the initiation of breath and ends with the ventilator cycling to expiration. Inspiratory valve is open, expiratory valve is closed. However, this limit does not terminate the inspiration. So do not confuse with the pressure limit which cuts off the, this is for the delivery. It allows inspiration to continue till the cycling criteria is reached, but at the set limit, like the fixed pressure and or a fixed flow, fixed pressure in a pressure controlled breath, fixed flow during the volume controlled breath. As I said earlier, the mechanical breath, the first phase is triggering when the inspiratory flow starts. The second phase is the limit, which could be a pressure in a pressure controlled breath, and it could be flow in a volume or a flow controlled breath. Now this inspiratory phase has to end, and that is what we call as cycling. That means change over from inspiration to expiration. Inspiration ends when some variable has reached a preset value. It could be time, like in a pressure controlled breath, the time which you have fixed as an inspiratory time, when that ends, it will cycle to the expiration. In a volume controlled breath, it is the volume, when it is reached, it cycles to the expiration. But in fact, in the modern ventilators, they are flow controllers rather than a volume controllers. And volume is derived as a product of flow rate into inspiratory time. So actually, whether it's a volume controlled breath or a pressure controlled breath, both are time cycled. But to understand, we always talk of pressure controlled breath as a time cycle and a volume controlled breath as a volume cycle. But actually, that is also time cycle. Or it could be flow when the expiratory flow reaches a preset value. This is in a pressure support ventilation, which I shall discuss a little later. Then it could be a pressure also, when pressure reaches some preset value. Most of the time, this is a safety limit. You fix up a pressure limit so that the lungs do not get affected. So when that is reached, it will cut off and will cycle to the expiration. Then there is an expiration phase from the start of the expiratory flow to the beginning of inspiratory flow. It is a passive process. It is not controlled by the ventilator. So when the inspiratory valve closes, expiratory valve opens, and then it will go to a pressure which you have set as a PEEP in your ventilator. So mechanical breath, just to revise, has 4 phases: the triggering, the limit, the cycling, and the expiratory phase. Now there are 2 kinds of or 2 sets of breath most of the ventilator will deliver. I think it's important to understand the kind of breath a ventilator delivers, then you can understand the modes much better. So it could be a volume control breath or a volume preset breath. This is actually, as I said, is a flow control breath or a pressure control breath. In a volume control or a flow control breath, your set parameter is the tidal volume, and the airway pressure will vary depending on the airway resistance and the compliance of lung and chest wall. The patient will get constant tidal volume, whatever is the change in the lung characteristic. But the problem in this is that if the patient flow demand is high and the ventilator is not delivering the flow which you set on a ventilator, then it will result in a patient ventilatory asynchrony due to the fixed flow rate. And there is no leak compensation in the volume control or a flow control breath. In a pressure control breath or a pressure preset breath, you set up the airway pressure, inspiratory pressure like 15 centimeter or 20 centimeter of water. Tidal volume delivered will be vary. It will depend on the airway resistance, compliance of lung and chest wall, the inspiratory pressure you are giving to this patient. So that will determine that how much volume the patient will get. And suppose you started on a higher pressures, and as the lung compliance get better, the patient may get more volume. This is the problem with the pressure control breath. Flow is not a problem because flow will vary according to the patient demands and it compensates for leaks. So this is another advantage of the pressure control. There is another breath, pressure support breath, which I shall discuss later. So there are 3 kind of breath based on the 4 phases which I discussed: trigger, the limit, cycling and expiration, volume control, pressure control, and a pressure support breath. So if you see in this slide, I have already discussed what is written. Tidal volume is constant in volume control or a flow control, and a pressure control, the tidal volume is variable. Peak inspiratory pressure is variable in volume control, it's constant in pressure control. Inspiratory time is actually set in both. Inspiratory flow you set in a volume control, it's variable in pressure control. Inspiratory flow waveform, most of the time you should go for a square waveform, but you can also set the waveform is deaccelerating in a pressure control. As you can see on the graphics on the right side in the pressure control, there is a deaccelerating flow. Is a typical feature of a pressure control modes. The pressure gradient between the lung and the breathing system is maintained by the ventilator at a constant level, which provides the driving force for the flow. What I mean is that at the beginning of inspiration, the pressure in the ventilator is high and the pressure in the lung is the PEEP level. So there is a gradient which provides the gradient provides the source for the airflow into the lung. As the filling in the lung increases, the pressure in the lung also rises. So this reduces the pressure gradient and the flow drops continuously as the pressure equalizes between the ventilator and the lung. What I mean to say is that you started with 20 centimeter of water pressure from the ventilator and there is a 4 PEEP. So now as the flow is being delivered, the pressure in the lung is rising. So gradient is decreasing, and as the gradient decreases, the flow will keep on falling. So always in a pressure preset ventilation, you will have a deaccelerating flow as you can see on the right side. The pressure versus time, as you can see the graphics below, exhibits a square pattern indicating that the pressure remains at the preset level throughout the inspiratory phase, and peak flow is the result of the set pressure level, the patient lung characteristics, and the patient inspiratory effort. Now let's see on the left side. is a typical feature of a volume-oriented mode of ventilation or volume-controlled breath. Most modern ventilators, I said, was of flow controllers, and tidal volume is derived as a product of flow rate and inspiratory time. Thus, in a volume-controlled ventilation, once set by the physician, both the flow rate and time remain constant from breath to breath to deliver the volume which you have fixed on the ventilator. Expiration, whether it is a volume controlled breath or a pressure controlled breath, is totally passive phenomena and is not assisted by the ventilator in any way. Thus, the expiratory waveform is similar in volume and a pressure controlled ventilation, and it gives a valuable information about the mechanics of the respiratory system during expiration. This is also independent of the type of ventilation which you are giving to the patients. There are certain terminologies which we used mentioning about the type of breath. We call it a mandatory breath when ventilator determines either the start of inspiration or end of inspiration or both. Assisted breath is a word used when it is a patient triggered. Spontaneous is when the start and end both are determined by the patient, you call it as spontaneous. And you say supported breath if inspiratory pressure is greater than the baseline, you call it a supported breath. Mode, when you use the term mode, there are various kinds of modes. Modes actually mean it specifies the manner in which the mechanical breath is delivered to the patients. And the common breaths which I have discussed is a volume control or a pressure control breath. So, how these are delivered to the patient? So, there are commonly used mode are the controlled mechanical ventilation, assist controlled mechanical ventilation, SIMV or synchronous intermittent mandatory ventilation, pressure support, high frequency ventilation. So, I shall be discussing these one by one. So, first I will discuss the controlled mechanical ventilation. In controlled mechanical ventilation, patient does nothing. All breaths are initiated by the ventilator. So, all are time triggered at a preset frequency. So, whatever frequency you fix up on the ventilator, patient will get that many mechanical breath. They could be a pressure controlled breath or a volume controlled breath. And they will be pressure limited if it's a pressure controlled breath, they will be flow limited if it is a volume controlled breath. And they will be time cycled if it is a pressure controlled breath, and it would be volume cycled if you are giving a volume controlled breath, or in fact that is also time cycled. As you see in this graphics, which is showing on the left side a pressure targeted ventilation or the pressure control, CMV pressure control, and on the right side you see CMV volume control. If you see, the x-axis is time and on the y-axis there is a flow, pressure and volume. As you can see on the left side, since it is a pressure controlled breath, the pressure in the middle graph is uniform all through the inspiration, the flow is deaccelerating, and the volume will vary depending on the airway resistance compliance. On the right side, it's a volume control breath where there is no negative deflection, so all breaths are initiated by the machine, the flow is uniform, and the pressure varies depending on the airway resistance compliance of the lung and chest wall, and the volume delivered is uniform in all breaths. So, this is the control mode. Control mode is usually given in the anesthesia, during anesthesia, or when patient is apneic, or when patient is paralyzed. But normally nowadays we do not paralyze patient. In a controlled breath, there was no interaction between the patient and the ventilator. Then there is an assist control. Assist control is that patient can access gas, patient can access the mechanical breath by triggering the ventilator. When patient makes an effort, he opens the inspiratory valve and he gets the mechanical breath, which is the assisted breath. But what you fix up on the ventilator is a backup rate. So, if patient does not initiate, he will get a controlled breath from the ventilator. That's why it is called the assist control. Patient is ensured of certain breath per minute. At the same time, patient can initiate and access as many breath as many time patient triggers the ventilator. It could be a assist control volume preset breath, or it could be a pressure preset. If it is a pressure preset, you call it ACMV pressure control, and if it is a volume preset, you call it ACMV volume control. So as you can see in the graphics, in the time versus the flow, pressure and volume, in the middle graph you can see there is a negative deflection below the x-axis. So this shows that there is a patient initiated breath, and the patient will get the flow, and there is a volume which has been fixed on the ventilator. But if patient does not trigger, he can get a control breath. That's why it is called the assist control. None of the ventilator has a separate knob for control or assist control. There is a single knob. If patient is paralyzed or is apneic, then it becomes a pure control, and he will only get the breath and the tidal volume or the pressure which you have set on a ventilator. But if patient is not paralyzed, it becomes a assist control. So that means patient can trigger and get the mechanical breath from the ventilator. In assist control ventilation, the patient was getting support from the ventilator as many times as he was able to trigger the ventilator. In synchronized intermittent mandatory ventilation, this is another mode of ventilation where you fix the number of breaths patient will get support from the ventilator. Like if I fix up 10 breaths per minute, every 6 seconds patient will get a breath from the ventilator. If patient triggers, he will get an assisted breath from the ventilator. If patient does not, then it will be a controlled breath from the patients. But patient will be ensured of 10 breaths per minute. Every 6 seconds, there is a window which will determine that the patient gets a breath at that time, whether it is assisted or a controlled breath. In between, patient will get a spontaneous breathing. As you can see in this graphic, this is SIMV pressure control mode. The flow is deaccelerating, the pressure is uniform all through the inspiration, and the volume varies. In between you see a spontaneous breathing, and you can see there is a negative deflection in the pressure time graphic, and the volume is low. Now SIMV mode came into existence, and they found that this was not very useful. Various trials, even used during weaning, when they compared T-piece pressure support and SIMV, they did not find the SIMV to be comparable to pressure support and T-piece, and which were found to be better. There were trials done in France and in Spain where they found these findings. One of the problem which was found in SIMV mode, that it did not decrease the work of breathing for these patients. So there's another mode which has come into existence, is the pressure support. This is a totally spontaneous mode. The beginning and end is both determined by the patient himself. So in this, the trigger is a patient, he gets a pressure, but the cycling is flow. It is different from the pressure control, where it could be patient triggered, patient gets the limit is a pressure, the cycling was time. In a pressure support, it is all the time patient triggered, patient gets a limit as a pressure, but cycling is flow, not time. As I said earlier, when you give a pressure preset modes, at the beginning of the breath, the pressure inside the ventilator is higher as compared to the lung. And as the gradient equalizes, the flow falls in any pressure preset mode. So when this flow is falling, you decide some percentage of maximum, it will cycle to the expiration. By default, most of the earlier ventilator, it used to be 25%. So when it goes at a 25% of the maximum, it will go into the expiration. So patient initiated, pressure limited, and a flow cycle. In most of the modern ventilators, you can even adjust the flow cycling. Usually, as I said earlier, it used to be 25% of the peak flow. Now you can adjust the percentage of the peak flow and some people call it an expiratory trigger, which you can keep 25%, 40%, where it will cycle to the expiration. If you want to increase inspiratory time, you go down, like from 25% you go to 10%. If you want to decrease the inspiratory time, you have to go to higher. Like in a COPD patient, if I want to decrease the inspiratory time from 25%, I may come to 40%, right? So you have adjustable cycling mechanism in many of these modern ventilators. Now I had discussed SIMV, and I also told you SIMV could be pressure control, SIMV could be volume control. Now those spontaneous breathing, as I said, the SIMV, when you give a prefixed number of breath, it increases the work of breathing. Now those spontaneous breath which were coming, I gave a pressure support to decrease the work of breathing. So most of the time the SIMV is not used alone, it is used with a pressure support for the spontaneous breathing. In the SIMV pressure support, patient gets a preset mandatory respiratory rate and tidal volume in a flow control or a volume control breath, and a pressure limit in a pressure control breath. Mandatory breaths, they synchronize with the patient triggering, and additional breaths depending on patient efforts are pressure supported, which are spontaneous breathing. Mandatory breaths are time cycled, pressure support breath are flow cycled. CPAP is not a mode of ventilation. It's like you give a PEEP. PEEP is a positive end expiratory pressure and refers to the constant baseline pressure that is present throughout the ventilatory cycle. Similarly, PEEP and CPAP are synonymous, but we use the term CPAP when referring to the patients who are breathing spontaneously, and PEEP when patients are ventilated with a positive pressure ventilation. So you keep a positive pressure at the end of expiration. During spontaneous ventilation, it's a CPAP, and during mechanical ventilation, it is PEEP. Now, after understanding the modes, you have to understand that how to initiate ventilation. First is the preparation. You must prepare your patient, decide what kind of sedation you are going to give, what you are going to monitor, what are your baseline investigation. Most of the time it could be an ABG. Check your intubation equipment that they are working fine. Check the manual ventilation and the bag ventilation. Check your electrical oxygen and compressor connection and breathing circuit. And it is ideally advisable that before you put a patient on a ventilator, an artificial bag, you set up the initial ventilatory setting. So you choose the mode. That is the first thing, which could be a assist control, pressure control, assist control, volume control. Then primary settings. If it's a volume control, you fix up tidal volume, respiratory rate, FiO2. If it's a pressure control, you fix up the inspiratory pressure, respiratory rate, FiO2. Then secondary settings could be PEEP, trigger sensitivity, IE ratio, and then you set the alarms. Always when you ventilate a patient, begin with a manual ventilation. Do not be in a hurry to put a patient directly on a ventilator. And then watch for hypotension. One of the common complications when you intubate a patient is a hypotension. There are various reasons why a patient can get hypotension. One of the reasons is that you give sedation, which can bring down the blood pressure, or your patient, because of positive pressure ventilation, there is decrease in venous return, patient was relatively dehydrated and there is a drop in blood pressure, or rarely it could be a pneumothorax. But if patient develops hypotension, you push in about 200, 300 ml of normal saline, which will bring up the pressure. Then if you have decided for the assist control, volume control, then you fix up your tidal volume, normal lung 8 ml per kg, respiratory rate 12 to 20, FiO2 of 1, peak flow rate 40 to 60 liters per minute, PEEP 0 to 5, IE ratio 1:2, the sensitivity of the flow trigger 0.8 to 2 liters per minute, is a pressure trigger about -2 centimeter of water, If any time you are in doubt, start with Ambu's ventilation. Now, what should be the setting? If the patient has normal lung, you start with tidal volume 8 ml, respiratory rate of 12 to 15 per minute. But if patient has a higher airway resistance, like a COPD patients or a patient of bronchial asthma, you always start with a low tidal volume and a low respiratory rate, so that you give higher time or a more time for the expiration. If you start with a higher tidal volume and a higher rate, what will happen is the patient will get insufficient time for expiration, and it will lead to dynamic hyperinflation, and that can further create problems with the ineffective triggering and hemodynamic compromise. So, in a patient with a high airway resistance, low tidal volume, low rate and a high flow rate. If patient has a low compliance, like a patient of ARDS, you use the low tidal volume, which is now universally accepted, 6 ml per kg of ideal body weight. But in this, you can give a higher rate. You can go up to 35 respiratory rate per minute. You can give FiO2 and PEEP depending on the requirement of patient. But try that you do not give the oxygenation beyond 0.6. This is just to show that all mild, moderate and severe ARDS patient, you should give a low tidal volume ventilation. If it is not able to maintain the oxygenation, you can use a higher PEEP in a moderate and severe ARDS. And then there are other modalities like prone positioning, neuromuscular blockade and ECMO, which can be tried in a severely sick patient. So, once you have initiated the mechanical ventilation, you confirm the chest expansion. Very, very important. That's the first thing that you should confirm. You have your start the sedatives. Nowadays, you don't use relaxant when you ventilate. There are very few indications of relaxant. One is a very severe ARDS for first 48 hours, and sometime for controlled hyperventilation, a patient with high intracranial pressures, or when you are not able to ventilate a COPD patients. Otherwise, most of the mechanical ventilation nowadays is done without any relaxant. Put a Foley's catheter and a nasogastric tube. You get a check X-ray and ABG about 20 minutes to see that it is working fine. And mechanical ventilation is a very big risk factor for the stress bleeding. So you should start anti-gastritis measures. All these patients are immobilized for some time, so you start DVT prophylaxis and of course eye care, particularly if you have used relaxants. So another thing which is very important is to setting the alarm on the ventilator. Expired the minute volume 10 to 20% above and below the inspired minute volume, low pressure 5 to 15 centimeter, high peak pressure 40 to 45 centimeter of water, FiO2, apnea time and backup ventilation. So these are the alarms you should set up on the ventilator. So what to monitor in a volume control ventilation and a pressure control ventilation? During volume control ventilation is the peak airway pressure, plateau airway pressures and low pressure alarms. During pressure control ventilation, you measure the expired tidal volume and the expired minute volume. Whenever you get a high peak airway pressure, it is affected by so many things. It is affected by airway resistance, it is affected by compliance of lung, chest wall. So there are various reasons which can, even a narrow tube can give rise to high peak inspiratory pressure or peak airway pressure. Increased flow rate, decreased lung compliance, increased tidal volume, baseline pressure increase. This pressure is directly dependent on the airway resistance. So it is affected by a lot of things. It is affected by the mucus plug. It can be affected if the lungs compliance goes down because of pneumonia, because of the pleural effusion, because of pneumothorax. So peak airway pressure is a pressure which is affected by various things. So you have to see what is the reason in your patient and try to reduce it if there is a reversible reason for this. The pressure which is most important to be monitored during the volume control ventilation is the plateau pressure. or sometimes people used to call it a pause pressure. I have already explained you that when you give an inflation hold at the peak airway pressure, there is equalization of pressure in the airways because there is no flow, and this pressure is called the plateau pressure. It is the static pressure which corresponds to the alveolar pressure. It is indirect measures of the static compliance of the patient ventilatory system, that is lung, chest wall and ventilation circuit. And at all times you should maintain the plateau pressure, whether you do a volume control ventilation or whether you do a pressure control ventilation below 30 centimeter of water. Then the mean airway pressure. Mean airway pressure is a very important determinant of oxygenation. Area under the airway pressure curve over the total ventilatory cycle. It's a composite of all the pressure transmitted to the airway by the ventilator. Increase, as I said, in mean arterial pressure, mean airway pressure correlate with the improvement in oxygenation. Increased mean airway pressure correlate with the depression of cardiac output. So mean airway pressure on one side will improve the oxygenation. Mean airway pressure also can decrease the venous return and can cause a decrease in the cardiac output. So if I have to say what controls PaCO2 and what controls PaO2, PaCO2 is controlled by mechanical ventilation, the alveolar ventilation. So that is a product of tidal volume and respiratory rate. The PaO2 is controlled by the mean airway pressure and the FiO2, and mean airway pressure is dependent on many factors, and important among them is the PEEP, which has a lot of impact on the mean airway pressure, the tidal volume you deliver and other factors. So there are very few complications in the modern day ventilation, but there are complications which could be related to the airways, related to intubations, could be related to the ventilation. Related to intubation, there could be injury in the larynx, there could be a bleeding in the larynx, and ventilator related, it could be hypotensions, reduced organ perfusion. It can also result in a raised intracranial pressure if the PaCO2 is very high. If there is a pneumothorax can develop sometime, patient can develop arrhythmias. There could be a arrhythmia most often develops related to the suctioning, which can result in a hypoxemia and can result in arrhythmia. Related to ventilatory management, it could be unintended hyperventilation, unintended hypoventilation, and the most important is a ventilator induced lung injury. This is one of the things which one must make an attempt to avoid, ventilator associated lung injury, and at all times you should keep the plateau pressure below 30 centimeter of water. Then inadvertent air trapping and auto PEEP, respiratory distress. If your settings are not all right, you're giving a very little flow in a volume control ventilation and patient is sort of fighting with the ventilator. And another thing is a ventilator associated pneumonia. So if I have to see out of all this, ventilator associated pneumonia is very important. You should follow all the steps of prevention of ventilator associated pneumonia, because a ventilator associated pneumonia is associated with very high mortality in patient on mechanical ventilation, and that is the only thing where the relative and the physician both are worried that patient should not develop the ventilator associated pneumonia. Rest all you can control, but if a patient develop infection, and particularly if develops infection with a resistant organism, sometime it can increase the mortality of that patient. And of course the barotrauma, patient developing pneumothorax. So at all times you should keep the plateau pressure below 30 centimeter of water. The chances of development of a barotrauma would be less. So just to conclude, it is not important what mode you use. You should use the most common mode which the most of the staff is familiar with. And at this point of time, after so many modes have discovered, the volume control ventilation is still the preferred mode in most of the ICUs, and almost 80 to 90% of the patients are being ventilated with this ventilation. So ventilatory strategy is more important than the mode you choose. Prevent ventilator associated lung injury and prevent dynamic inflation, hyperinflation in obstructive diseases, and prevent ventilator associated lung injury in all patients. Thank you very much.